Well, hello plant lovers, it is Matthew in Melbourne welcoming you to my channel. Thank you very much for finding me in this crowded world of YouTube orchid videos. If you're new here and if you're remotely interested, I grow or try to grow cold, cool, intermediate orchids here in Melbourne, Australia without the help of any expertise. Greenhouses, grow lights, humidifiers, equipment, really just me and them struggling along inside or outside or not at all. So plant lovers of the world, if that does sound like your conditions and you're interested, do hit subscribe. I post every week on a Friday. And today, yes, there are a few orchids here, plant lovers, but you know what? We're not going to dive into those just yet. The reason being, I am fresh out of the car from the Orchid Society's Council of Victoria's Melbourne Orchid Spectacular, as Baz Luhrmann may have said, where in an annual shindig, all of, well, a lot of the orchid growers in this region congregate under one roof to sell their beautiful plants. And secondly, all of the orchid societies have incredible displays of blooming plants, which are then judged. It is the most fantastic thing. It only happens annually. And alas, you're now watching this and it's happened, but you must put it in your diary for next year. Now I'll put the link below for the society website. And in fact, there's the calendar of every event there. So there are smaller exhibitions and sales throughout the year, throughout Victoria. Obviously this is specific to the state I'm in, but the point is there, plant lovers, that no matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to find an orchid society or an orchid club or a growers association. And generally those organizations have annual events, displays, sales, etc., etc. So if you're interested and if you're new and if you want to learn, but more importantly, perhaps if you want to get your hands on some rare and interesting plants, a great place to begin. So I was very lucky that I was able to go this morning before the doors opened and have a look around and do some filming as the stands were just being finished by the vendors, have a chance to talk to some people and see some fantastic plants. So I think without further ado, let us shimmy back in time to early this morning when I was at the Orchid Society's Council of Victoria's annual Melbourne Orchid Spectacular. Well, plant lovers, here I am at the Melbourne Orchid Spectacular, and what is spectacular are all the Australian dendrobiums that you can see in bloom behind me. So I've been very lucky to come in just before the spectacular opens, and what this is basically is probably most of the best growers on the east coast of Australia are here. So there's selling, and I will just spin around, baby, right around. Look at that. I haven't even had a look yet, so you're very lucky that I'm offering this up first. And then in the other half of the exhibition hall, there are all of the local orchid groups from all around Victoria have got displays of orchids that are in bloom. So I cannot wait to go and have a look at that. But just casting my eye around, the first thing I can see a most amazing bunch of cymbidiums in bloom, and obviously the Australian dendrobiums right behind me. So I think without any further ado, I'm just gonna walk through these and have a little look and show you some of the things that are leaping out at me. And at the very end, I think we might have to review my shopping cart. Anyway, the Orchid Spectacular occurs once a year in Melbourne. So unfortunately, when this goes to air, you'd have missed it. But I will put all the links below, and it's very worth putting in your calendar. Even though you might not be in Australia and you may have missed this, find a local orchid club near you, because no matter where you are in the world, there'll be similar things such as this where clubs get together and there are selling opportunities, chances to meet makers, chances to see lectures and talks about things that are helpful in the orchid growing world. So even though this might be a terrible tease because you can't be here, there will be something similar just about wherever you are in the world. You just might have to dig a little bit. But first step is always to try and find a local orchid club, and Matt will give you a gateway to magnificent orchids. All right, let's go and look at these. So I'm here with Glenys from the Hanging Garden, which is a great grower, a great nursery, a specialist in Australian dendrobiums, and these are just looking stunning. We're at peak flowering time.
Yes, coming into it.
Yes, so here I am with an expert grower. This is my chance to ask you, what would you say, Glenys, are maybe the top 5 things to consider when growing Australian dendrobiums?
Well, the first thing to consider is that growing orchids is dangerous.
Why is that?
Because they're addictive.
Oh, yes.
I was given that warning by a friend back in maybe 20 years ago.
Oh, right. And it was true.
It was true because you get one and then you get two and then you get three and then you've got no room left in your garden.
This sounds eerily familiar.
Yes, so they are dangerous.
So that's the first thing. It's a public health warning.
Yes. Yes. I think perhaps my second piece of advice is to grow the things you love if they are suitable to grow in your conditions.
Which is very important.
Because if you love something that requires heat, you haven't got heat, you live in a climate where you get frosts in winter.
And do you?
We do.
Yeah. And you're not heated, are you? You're
No.
sheltered, but not heated.
Because virtually everything we grow is an Australian native, either species or a hybrid of Australian native species. So they've grown up living out in the bush.
Yeah.
They've had to cope with those conditions. So they get it a bit soft in the nursery because they're being grown under...
Pampered.
Yes, that's a good expression. They're being grown under shade cloth, they're getting watered, they're getting fed. But Australian native orchids generally are pretty tough. So long as you give them some shelter,
Yes.
they will cook in the full sun.
Yeah.
If you give them adequate water, they like to be well watered, then to dry out before you give them, generally speaking.
Yeah.
There are always exceptions.
Asterisk, there's always an exception,
Exception.
which someone will probably make a note about. That's interesting though. So is it fair to say then, this is a generalisation, there is no rest period for Australian dendrobiums?
That is fair to say. We just keep on going.
Consistent care throughout the year?
Yes.
Does that include food?
We don't feed as much in the winter. That's partly because we don't water as much. We use a slow release fertiliser and we use a liquid fertiliser. So in the winter we're not fertilising, we're not watering very often.
Right.
So we're not feeding very often.
Right. Makes sense.
Yes. But in the spring, summer, autumn, which are the main growing periods, then they get liquid fertiliser every week.
Right.
Which of course they wouldn't get out in the bush.
No. Now I'm also going to pick up one of your...
Okay, pick an Aussie native.
I was going to pick an Aussie, not
Yes.
that fabulous Cattleya.
An Aussie native.
So I just want to show everyone, what is the mix that you're growing your orchids in?
Okay, we grow our orchids in a mixture of perlite and vermiculite.
Right.
The mulch on the top is just some pebbles,
Yeah.
which stops it blowing away.
Yes. And this is a Dendrobium kingianum called giant stripe,
Yes.
which is very beautiful.
So that's an Australian species.
Yeah.
The mixture of perlite and vermiculite has a few advantages,
Yeah.
we feel. It stays pH neutral,
Right.
so we don't need to worry about lime and things like that.
I did secretly ask you about lime.
So we've got that covered.
Yeah.
It retains a bit more water, so we don't have to water quite as frequently as you would in, say, bark,
Yeah.
because we've got thousands of plants to water.
True.
Yeah.
True. Which perhaps not all of us do, but...
It's very clean to handle, so I don't come home with filthy fingernails.
Ah, that's a very good point, because I do get very dirty fingernails.
Good quality bark is hard to source and expensive. And again, when you're using thousands of plants,
Yeah.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, just checking we haven't got a customer.
Yeah, I think we've just about to open, so
That's
yeah.
okay. Oh, but the important thing, no matter what media you're using, is to match your watering to the media.
To the medium, yeah.
Because if you water this like you'd water bark, for example, you would overwater. So the big trick is to feel the way to the pot.
Yes.
And this applies not just with orchids, but with anything.
Any plant. But that also is an understanding of the pot you're using, its relative weight, the media you're using, its relative weight, and then finding your way.
Yes, but if you pick that plant up every day for a week, you'll find it gets light.
Yeah.
And you know then it's time to water.
Yeah. Well, Glynis, thank you so much for letting us preempt the rush. And I know you're going to be bombarded. I'm going to show everyone the amazing speciosums that you've got.
Yes, and our mounted plants.
I will. I'll
Yes,
go and have a look.
Show everything.
I might have to put something in my shopping cart.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a great
Nice to
show.
meet you.
Just look at these Dendrobium speciosums. Oh my goodness. Have you ever seen so many beautiful flowering examples? Heady fragrance. And such a variety of colour too. Absolutely stunning. Look at this fabulous flowering dendrochilum. Isn't it the most glorious, glorious flower? And such an amazing looking plant with these very tubular, very strange leaves. It's an odd plant, an amazing native. I do have one, not been able to get it to bloom yet. This is an amazing example though, look at that. I've already found something I can't live without, Dendrobium tetragonium. And of course, the great thing about this time of year, it is Cymbidium time. Look at all of these incredible hybrids. I mean, I have a lot of Cymbidiums, but you never come to an event like this and think, I could just have one more. I mean, look at the flowers. They're absolutely stunning. Well, let me have a look at all of these. And here are some more fantastic Dendrobium speciosum. So these are all just coming into bud, as you can see. Flowers haven't opened yet. Really beautiful plants though, and it takes such a long time to get these plants to a mature stage to flower. So buying a mature specimen in, well, that's in flowering size is the way to go, even though it can be a bit of an investment. Now this stand is Orchids on Newbold, which is a company I often buy from because they have very similar growing conditions to me. So I always know whatever I find on these guys' stand, I can grow basically in my unheated, slightly sheltered conditions here in Melbourne. So look at the peonies. Oh my goodness, Peony alba. Very, very exciting to see. Dendrobium densiflorum. Ooh, very nice. What else can we see? Some species Cymbidiums, as well as some really great hybrid Cymbidiums, and lots of Cymbidium seedlings. And these are actually really good value because they will flower within 4-ish years. So you haven't got to wait a decade as you have with speciosums. Beautiful things, oh my goodness. Now Orchids on Newbold also have a great range of cattleyas, and this is where I get a lot of my cold growing cattleyas from because, as I said, their conditions are basically the same as mine. So I know that all of these cattleyas are going to survive outdoors in my winter, and all of these are either in bud or in bloom. So might have to go shopping. Well, there we are, a great whiz through the Orchid Melbourne Spectacular. Thank you very much for letting me come in early, everyone. Now I'm going to get into some serious orchid hunting. See you next time. So there you are, plant lovers. How fantastic was that? So yes, don't be blue if you're not in Australia or even Victoria and you didn't get a chance to go. It will happen next year. But if you're somewhere else in the world, as I said, there will be something similar in your region. So dig a little, have a little look. Often these groups do have a Facebook presence. And I know many people don't use Facebook, but those that do are often orchid lovers, I'm here to tell you. So that might be a good place to research. But anyway, I'm sure you will find what you're looking for, as you two said. Many, many thanks to Glenys from the Hanging Gardens for giving me some time before the crowds burst in, because there was a massive queue there this morning. So interesting to talk to her, and this is one of the plants from her stand, as to some of her thoughts about growing orchids, and so interesting. Her choice of growing medium just goes to show there is no absolute, there's no right or wrong. You've got to find what works for you, which was her point. She said to me off camera, you can ask 10 different people how they grow the same orchid and it will all be different. So I think that is important to understand. I know we're all here on YouTube looking for advice and help and basic information, of course, of course, of course. But ultimately, you've got to put that in a blender and then figure out what works for you, which is perhaps easier said than done. But after a bit, you do get confidence and you do understand what your climate suggests you can grow and how you should go about growing it. So thanks, Glenys. I also loved her public health warning about the fact that orchids are addictive. I am here to attest to that. Now, the other thing that the Orchid Spectacular has are all these amazing displays by all the clubs and groups in Victoria, and an incredible array of flowers. Now, I always find it very inspiring, but then sometimes a little disappointing personally, because you think, oh my goodness, look at all these amazing specimen plants, perfect leaves, perfect flowers, not a spot on any of them. But that's the point. They're all there to be displayed and judged. I'm very non-judgmental, but I always find it inspiring to think, look at that, I can grow that, because the other great thing about going to an exhibition in your area is just seeing what orchids people can grow and also what time they're going to bloom. But I think the standout is always the Australian species orchids and the hybrids thereof of the Dendrobium speciosum and Kingianum types. Always an amazing array, and every time I see them there I just think, I can't wait to be on a new house where I can have mine displayed together so that when they're all in bloom, I too will have those massive pots cascading with incredible blooms. I must say too, the fragrance in that room is stunning. It's very subtle and it's a very high roofed building, but you can still smell the gorgeous fragrance of all these accumulated Australian dendrobiums. So just wandering through, you can just see the incredible variety of colour and form that some of these orchids have taken. Lots of hybridization going on to produce incredible plants, both different forms, different vigor, different flowers, fragrance, size of flower, colour. I mean, every combination you could imagine. Absolutely gorgeous. And it was fascinating to see on the top of one of those stands a massive Dendrobium speciosum plant in a bonsai pot, which is my ultimate goal. And I've actually got a large bonsai pot. And I was looking at that plant going, maybe I need to move into that territory. But beautiful to see that plant displayed and grown like that. Now, the other thing that always strikes me is that at this time of year, there's always this incredible array of those natives in bloom, yet mine are often several weeks away from opening. So my Dendrobium speciosum, for example, is still very much in the bud stage. I think it would have another couple of weeks before they open, and many of my Kingianums as well. However, I do have some that open a little earlier, but interesting to see that wherever everyone's growing, we all just have a slightly different timetable as to when our plants want to bloom. A couple of highlights for me, I mean, other than the Australian natives, were the Masdevallias that you see everywhere. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful to see. I am going to have to do some work with my Masdevallias this year. They all need to be repotted. They have been in their pots now for too long. So that's something I'm going to have to do this spring, which we're about to get into. The other thing, of course, I loved seeing were all the Cymbidiums, because it is Cymbidium time. It is late winter at the moment, so a lot of the hybrids are all in bloom. Most of the species tend to flower a little earlier, so it was mostly hybrids. But one that I was really keen to see was Cymbidium hookerianum, which is a species orchid. So this is my little seedling here. There you go. But I'm just going to show you the footage of this incredible specimen plant that was there. In fact, there was a couple. And I just love those pendant species types of Cymbidiums. They just seem so elegant. The size of the flowers, the spacing of the flowers, the length of the spike, just beautiful. So I was really inspired by that hookerianum. I mean, look at my little plant. Bless its heart. This was a seedling last year, and it's got a fantastic new growth here. This was last year's growth, and the original growth has got one little leaf left on it. This didn't get off to a great start, and I was really worried. It's actually quite hard to find, so I was quite anxious. Didn't have a great root system. It's suddenly got a bit wonky in the pots, but I have to say now it is really firm. Its roots are going gangbusters. Can't see them coming out, but it's obviously now doing really well. This growth grew beautifully, and now I've got a really great new growth coming out there. So I'm really excited about this. Probably another few years until mine is looking like those fantastic specimens I saw this morning. Now, the other thing that I love seeing there is the cool growing Paphiopedilums, and you can see the insignes that we're looking at now. So these are a Himalayan type. They love Melbourne, and you can basically grow them outside. I've even seen them in my area growing outside under trees. So that's sort of moderate cover. I mean, plenty of protection from the sun, but not so much from the rain. Interesting to see. And I don't know, they just seem so exotic and so terrifying, actually, those flowers, because they look quite carnivorous, but amazing to see such beautiful specimens. I don't have an insigne, so I am going to try and find myself one, but I do want to find a maturer plant that's flowering size. I am not going to start on the seedling journey with that one. Now, what did break my heart is this fabulous Coleogene usitana. Now, I had one and I killed it, and it is incredibly hard to find, and I bought it a few years ago in the early days of my orchid growing, And I thought, oh, collagenate, it'll do well outside. They all do. It's actually a tropical one, well, a warmer grower. And of course, it didn't survive the winter. And I thought, oh, well, never mind. I'll get another one and then I'll know to grow it inside. Well, plant lovers, it ain't that easy. Never, ever found another one. So I was thrilled / jealous to see this beautiful specimen in bloom. So you can see it's a sequential bloomer. And the spike produces this sort of zigzag form as each flower matures and then drops and a new bud forms. And those spikes can be incredibly long and quite old, in fact. So it's a little bit like those Psychopsis orchids, very different form, but sequential blooming, and the spike can last for years and keep flowering for you. Well, plant lovers, that is on my to-do list, to find list, wish list and manifestation board. So many thanks to Michael Coker, who asked me to come in a little bit earlier this morning to film the exhibition before everyone came in. Thank you so much. It's like being a kid in a candy store being let into an orchid fair before anyone else. Oh, I had to really focus on filming and not shopping. But thank you very much, and thank you to everyone there who said hello. And once again, many thanks to Glenys from the Hanging Gardens for giving me some time. They are always flat chat at their stand because they have incredible mature specimen plants in bloom. So everyone makes a beeline for them. Now, unfortunately, the Hanging Garden doesn't have a website anymore because they actually are winding down the business, which is very sad. And they only now really sell through plant sales, such as the one that happened today, but also some of the smaller ones. So have a look at the Orchid Society's Council of Victoria website, which is below, because it lists the vendors in every sale often. So that's a good way to find out if the Hanging Garden is going to be exhibiting, because they do have the most incredible array of Australian native orchids. Well, plant lovers, yes, you may have noticed that I went shopping while I was there because, of course, why wouldn't you? But you know what? This video is too long. So you are going to have to tune in next week to see what did Matthew buy at the Orchid Spectacular 2024 in Melbourne. So yes, plant lovers, many thanks for watching. Many thanks to Michael Coker again and the organisers at today's fair for letting me in and filming. Thank you again to everyone who said hello. It's so great to meet people who actually watch this channel, so thank you. And I look forward to seeing you next week when we are going to go through each of these things that I bought and why. See you next time.